The worn leather of the armchair cradled me, a familiar comfort I'd come to cherish. Outside, the rain, a gentle murmur against the windowpane, promised a new season, washing the city clean. Murphy, our scruffy terrier mix, snored softly at my feet, a small, furry anchor in the quiet of the evening. Luna sat opposite me, her head bent over a crossword puzzle, a slight smile playing on her lips. It was a scene so profoundly ordinary, so achingly peaceful, that sometimes, even now, it felt like a fragile spell. We had worked so hard for this quiet, fought through an inferno to reach this calm. But the echoes, like distant thunder, still rumbled beneath the surface of my own mind. They always would. 3 years had passed since the verdict, since the heavy gavel had fallen, since the last thread connecting me to the family I'd been born into had finally, irrevocably snapped. And still, there were days when the rage, a feral thing, threatened to consume me. Luna, with her quiet strength, saw it, too. She had once said, with a tenderness that cracked through my hardened shell, that she worried the anger was eating me. She wasn't wrong. It was a constant battle, a quiet war waged within the confines of my own skull, to remember that the hard-won peace we now inhabited was worth more than the bitter satisfaction of a perfect vengeance. My name is Noah. I'm 29 now, an aviation maintenance technician, my hands still finding solace in the intricate dance of machinery. The roar of a jet engine, the precise calibration of instruments, these were my constants, the predictable world where effort directly equated to outcome. It was a stark contrast to the volatile, unpredictable chaos that had swallowed my life 4 years ago. Luna, the woman who had walked through that fire with me, taught 3rd grade. She built worlds for children out of paper and glue, nurturing tender minds. Together, we had mapped out a life that, before everything, felt solid, unremarkable in its quiet ambition, a house with a yard, maybe 2 dogs, kids when we felt ready. It was a future grounded in simple truths, until the truth became anything but simple. My older brother, Cole, was 34 then. The golden child. My parents' firstborn, their pride, their investment. He'd been the high school quarterback, the one they trotted out at every church event, the living embodiment of their upward mobility. A business degree, a middle management position at a regional bank, it was a trajectory they'd planned for him, celebrated, polished. I was the kid who preferred the greasy comfort of an engine block to the perfectly manicured lawn of a football field. Technical school, a solid career built with my hands. My parents never explicitly said I disappointed them. But the silence, the subtle shifts in conversation, the way their eyes always returned to Cole, spoke volumes. Every family dinner was a quiet reinforcement of my runner-up status. The year of the party, Cole was on the cusp of a promotion to branch manager, a significant step up. My parents had been hyping him for months, his success a convenient prop for their own standing in the community. My dad's consulting business, reliant on those carefully cultivated connections, hinged on maintaining an impeccable facade. Everything, it seemed, was tied to Cole's reputation. A perfect son, a perfect family. So, when their 35th wedding anniversary rolled around, it was less a celebration of their enduring love and more a meticulously staged spectacle. They rented a sprawling backyard venue, strung with fairy lights that winked like false promises. 60 people were invited, every aunt, uncle, cousin, and family friend they had accumulated over the decades. It was a display of their carefully constructed world, and we, their children, were simply players in their grand drama. Cole arrived with his wife, Vanessa, a woman whose beauty often felt like a carefully chosen accessory. Luna, radiant in a blue dress she'd been excited about for weeks, and I arrived around 4 that afternoon. The weather was idyllic, mid-70s, a gentle breeze rustling through the leaves. My mother, 3 glasses of champagne deep by 5, was already holding court, regaling anyone who would listen with tales of her perfect marriage. My father, ever the showman, worked the grill like he was campaigning for office, his white apron pristine despite the smoke. Cole, naturally, made a fashionably late entrance around 6. He worked the room with the practiced ease of a politician, a confident smile, a firm handshake for every acquaintance. He even delivered some saccharine speech about family legacy that made my teeth ache. I remember feeling a familiar wave of resentment, a quiet yearning to fake a medical emergency just to escape the performative cheer. The party ramped up after dinner, the DJ blasting an almost aggressive mix of Journey and Bon Jovi. Luna and I gravitated to the edges, finding solace in each other's company. She spent some time with my cousin Jenna, a fellow teacher, animatedly discussing wedding plans. I remember catching snippets about flower arrangements and potential honeymoon destinations, a bright counterpoint to the manufactured festivity around us. Then, around 7:30, a prickle of unease. I noticed Cole watching Luna. It wasn't a casual glance, but a deliberate, almost predatory tracking of her movements. When she laughed at something Jenna said, his eyes didn't leave her face. Something about it felt wrong, a subtle shift in the air that my gut registered long before my conscious mind. I pushed it aside, attributing it to my long-standing, ingrained distrust of my brother. Surely, it was just my own baggage, tainting an otherwise pleasant evening. Around 8, Luna found me, her smile faltering as she approached. Her eyes, usually so bright, were shadowed, exhaustion etched around them. "I need 5 minutes away from this," she whispered, her voice strained. "My head's killing me. And I think if one more person asks when we're having kids, I might actually lose it." I smiled, despite the knot of worry tightening in my chest. Her week had been brutal, a third-grade class of 28 miniature hurricanes. "Go inside," I told her, gesturing toward the main building. "The back rooms are usually quiet. Take 20 if you need it. I'll check on you soon." She squeezed my hand, a fleeting comfort, then pressed a soft kiss to my cheek before disappearing into the side entrance. I watched her go, making a mental note to find her, a promise silently formed. But promises, even to myself, are fragile things in the face of persistent interruption. My dad's friend, a man who seemed to measure his self-worth by the length of his monologues, cornered me, eager to pick my brain about new FAA certification requirements. I offered clipped, concise answers, hoping to disengage. "Yeah, the new regs are a pain," I offered, trying to sound bored. "Basically, just more paperwork." But he kept talking, oblivious to my growing impatience, my internal clock ticking louder with every passing minute. Almost 30 minutes melted away before a cold dread, sudden and sharp, pierced through the drone of his voice. Luna. I needed to find Luna. The main building held a long, dimly lit hallway, with a series of small, anonymous rooms branching off. The venue manager had mentioned this wing was largely closed off for events, primarily used for storage or administrative offices during the week. Most of the doors were dark, closed, silent. I walked slowly, my footsteps muffled by the carpet, checking each one. Empty. Empty. Dark. The knot in my stomach tightened, a slow, insidious burn. Then I heard it. A sound that, even now, echoes in the quiet corners of my mind, stripping away the carefully constructed calm. A voice. Her voice. Saying words that stopped my heart cold, freezing the blood in my veins. "Stop. No, please." It was Luna. The sound, raw and desperate, came from the last room at the end of the hall. The door was closed. I lunged for the handle. Locked. The word locked reverberated through me, a chilling confirmation of the worst of my unspoken fears. I heard her cry out again, a strangled, terrified sound, and then everything went red. My vision tunneled, the periphery of the hallway blurring into a meaningless smear. A roaring filled my ears, drowning out everything but the frantic thump of my own heart. I didn't think. I didn't plan. I just moved. I threw my shoulder into the door once, the old wood groaning in protest. Again, with all the accumulated frustration, the simmering resentment of a lifetime of being second best, the primal fury of a man protecting his own. The frame splintered with a sickening crack, and the door burst inward, the deadbolt tearing violently through the wood. The scene etched itself onto my memory with the indelible sharpness of a brand. Cole. He had Luna pinned against the wall, his full body weight pressing her. His hand, a brutal vice, was clamped over her mouth, muffling her screams. Her beautiful blue dress, the one she'd been so excited about, was torn at the shoulder, pulled down, exposing her bra. His other hand was on her chest, groping, violating. Tears streamed down her face, glistening in the dim light, her body shaking, pushing desperately against him, but he held her, immovable, unstoppable. She couldn't move, couldn't breathe, couldn't scream. Her eyes, wide with pure, unadulterated terror, found mine across the small, suffocating space. In that moment, her fear became my own. The ringing in my ears intensified, a deafening roar. My anger, a force I rarely unleashed, exploded. I grabbed Cole by the back of his shirt collar, a rough, desperate yank that pulled him off her with astonishing force. He stumbled backward, sprawling against the opposite wall, a confused, almost petulant look on his face. He opened his mouth, a protest, a denial, already forming on his lips. I didn't let him finish. I hit him. Square in the jaw, with everything I had. All my weight, all my anger, all those years of being unseen, unheard, dismissed. He dropped like a stone, collapsing to the floor. But it wasn't enough. The rage demanded more. I followed him down, hitting him again and again, a visceral need to erase his smug, entitled existence. His nose broke with a wet crunch I felt through my knuckles, a sickening sensation. Blood exploded, spraying onto my hands, onto his expensive shirt, onto the pristine carpet. He tried to cover his face, but I kept going, every family dinner where I hadn't mattered, every time my parents had chosen him over basic decency, every unspoken slight, erupting through my fists. Then, a sudden, powerful force from behind. Someone grabbed me, yanking me off Cole with considerable strength. It was my cousin David, a big guy who worked in freight management, his voice a muffled shout in the ringing chaos of my ears. I couldn't make out words, just noise. All I cared about was Luna. I turned, stumbled, and went to her immediately. Her legs gave out, and she collapsed into me, shaking uncontrollably, her body trembling with a profound, bone-deep tremor. She couldn't form words, just gasping, broken sounds. The hallway, which moments before had been silent, was suddenly flooded with people. 20 relatives, it seemed, all pushing, staring, their shocked faces illuminated by the fairy lights filtering through the doorway. My mother's scream pierced the cacophony. David, his face pale, was on his phone, calling 911. Cole, a broken, bloody mess on the floor, kept trying to sit up, slipping in his own blood. My mom pushed through the crowd, a frantic, desperate energy propelling her. She dropped to her knees beside him, her hands hovering, then touching his face, his ruined nose. What happened? Who did this? Oh God, Cole! Her eyes, wild with distress, finally found mine. She saw the blood on my hands. For a fleeting second, I saw a flicker of understanding, a dawning horror. Then her expression hardened, contorted into pure, venomous hatred. What did you do to your brother? Ask him what he was doing when I walked in, I snarled, my voice raw. Cole would never, she shrieked, her voice rising to a hysterical pitch. There must be some confusion. She looked past me, her gaze sweeping over Luna's torn dress, her tear-streaked face, the stark terror still etched in her eyes. For a fraction of a second, I dared to hope. Perhaps, perhaps, she would see the truth. But no. Instead, her voice, laced with a saccharine condescension, cut through the air. Did you maybe misunderstand his intentions, sweetheart? Did you say something that made him think you wanted? Get away from her, I said, my voice cold, dead, stripped of all warmth. I stepped between them, shielding Luna with my body. Get away from her right now. My dad, ever the crisis manager, arrived, pushing through the stunned crowd. His eyes swept over the scene, Cole bleeding, me with blood on my hands, Luna crying, the horrified onlookers. I watched, sickened, as the calculations flashed across his face. How to spin this? How to minimize the fallout? How to preserve the precious family image? Then Luna spoke. Her voice was barely a whisper, a thread of sound, but in the sudden, eerie silence that fell over the hallway, everyone strained to hear. She told them everything. How Cole had followed her inside, cornered her in that small room, how he'd locked the door, grabbed her when she tried to leave, clamped his hand over her mouth when she screamed. She recounted the tearing of her dress, the violation of his touch, his insidious claim that she'd been teasing him, that she'd wanted it. She described her futile struggle against his strength, her absolute terror. My mother started crying then, not for Luna, but for Cole. For his bloodied face, for his ruined career, for the shattering of their perfectly crafted family image. The wail of sirens grew louder, closer, signaling the inevitable end. The party was over. Everything was over. Cole looked at me once, just once, before the ambulance crew arrived. I searched his eyes for something, remorse, shame, even a flicker of understanding. There was nothing. Just confusion, as if he genuinely couldn't fathom why I was so angry, why his world was collapsing. That look, devoid of any empathy, burned itself into my memory. I knew then he didn't think he'd done anything wrong. He never would. And I knew, with a chilling certainty, that this was just the beginning. The police separated everyone. 2 young officers, one male, one female, took Luna's statement first, her voice breaking as she recounted the horrific details. They photographed her torn dress, the raw, angry marks already blooming on her shoulder and chest, her swollen face. Then they turned to Cole, his mangled nose, his split lip, the blood. The officer looked at me, his gaze steady. "Did you do that?" "Yes," I said, without hesitation. "Why?" I told him exactly what I saw, every agonizing detail. He nodded, writing it all down. Paramedics loaded Cole into the ambulance. Concussion. Stitches. His nose would need setting. My mom, a frantic blur, tried to climb in after him. They let her. When the female officer finished with Luna, she asked if she wanted to file a report. Luna looked at me, her eyes meeting mine, then back at the officer. Her voice, though still shaky, held a new resolve. "Yes. And I want a full forensic exam. I want documentation of everything. Photos, DNA, medical records, all of it." The officer, surprised by the clarity of her request, paused. Most people in shock don't think that clearly. "I'm not letting him walk away from this," Luna said, her voice growing steadier, harder. "I want every piece of evidence documented." The officer made calls. We went to the hospital, a brutal, invasive process that lasted 3 agonizing hours. We left with a folder crammed with documentation, photos of bruising on her chest, shoulders, and arms, skin cells found under her fingernails, testament to her fight, marks on her neck and mouth. Medical notes describing defensive injuries, all consistent with her account. Everything time-stamped, irrefutable. Vanessa, Cole's wife, showed up at the hospital later, finding us in the sterile waiting area. "What happened?" she asked, her voice tight with panic. "Nobody will tell me anything." I gave her every detail, unflinching. She stood there, processing, her face paling, then walked out without a word. We later learned she drove straight home, packed a bag, and filed for divorce within 48 hours. The police took me to the station separately, photographed my split knuckles, had me write my own statement. They mentioned the forced entry, the deadbolt torn through the wood, confirming the charges would likely be brought against Cole once he was released from the hospital. "Am I being charged?" I asked, my voice hoarse. "Probably not, given the circumstances," the officer replied, "but it's not our call." 2 days later, Cole filed a counter-complaint. He claimed I'd attacked him unprovoked, that he and Luna were simply talking when I'd gone psychotic. His lawyer, a well-known defense attorney with a predatory reputation, was already spinning the narrative. Suddenly, I was a potential defendant, my act of protection twisted into an act of aggression. My own lawyer dismissed it as desperation, a transparent attempt to reframe an assault as a mutual fight. My parents called the next day. My mom's voice, eerily calm, sent shivers down my spine. We need to talk about how to handle this. Handle what? I asked, my voice flat. Cole assaulting Luna, she said, as if it were a minor inconvenience. It was inappropriate, yes, but we need to keep this private. If this goes public, we lose everything. Your father's business, Cole's promotion. Luna already gave her statement to the police, I interrupted, the calm finally cracking. You're being vindictive, she shrieked, the veneer of composure crumbling. You're tearing this family apart over what? There was a beat of silence, a pregnant pause in which she couldn't bring herself to utter the truth. Blood is thicker than water, my dad's gravelly voice rumbled from the background. I hung up. The words, ancient and insidious, twisted in my gut. The venue, we learned, had security cameras. The prosecutor, Patricia, a no-nonsense woman with sharp eyes and an even sharper mind, requested the footage. It should have shown Cole following Luna, the timeline, everything. But 2 days later, my lawyer called. His voice had an edge. The venue owner says he can't find the footage. System might have malfunctioned. He's still looking. He paused. That's convenient timing. A very long silence stretched between us. Someone got to him. Without that footage, the timeline, the irrefutable visual evidence, became harder to prove. Cole's lawyer pounced, claiming Luna's torn dress could have ripped during my assault on Cole. His hired expert testified that the forensic evidence was ambiguous. My parents, meanwhile, launched a campaign of character assassination. They called relatives, painting Luna as dramatic, unstable, after money. Cole, they insisted, had made a mistake, but didn't deserve his life ruined. I was being controlled, they claimed, manipulated. Half the family, swayed by their influence and the lure of stability, bought it. The other half simply stopped answering our calls. My cousin Jenna, bless her honest heart, called me separately one evening. Her voice was shaky, strained. I saw something at the party, she confessed. Cole was watching Luna all evening, tracking her. Then I saw him follow her to the building. He waited a minute before going in after her. Will you testify? I asked, the question hanging heavy in the air. A long silence. I could hear her ragged breathing on the other end of the line. My parents will disown me. That's your choice, I said, my voice carefully neutral. But it would help. Another pause. When she spoke again, her voice was stronger, imbued with a quiet conviction. I'll do it. I can't not. Cole's lawyer tried to exclude her testimony, but the judge denied it. October came and went, the month we were supposed to get married. We had to postpone the wedding, burying ourselves in the relentless grind of legal proceedings. There was no joy, no space to think about celebrating anything. Luna cried when we cancelled the venue deposit, a raw, quiet grief for the future that had been stolen. 3 weeks later, my parents showed up at our apartment unannounced. My mom started before I could even close the door. We need to work this out as a family, she pleaded, her voice a practiced blend of concern and coercion. Cole's sorry, but his lawyer told him not to say it. Luna emerged from the bedroom, her eyes guarded. My mom, seeing her, moved to hug her, a performative gesture. Luna stepped back, fast, a flash of revulsion on her face. Don't touch me. My mom's face fell, a mask of offended hurt. Then she tried the maternal approach. I understand you're confused and upset. Sometimes our memories. Get out, I said, stepping between them, my voice a low, dangerous rumble. You have 10 seconds. You wouldn't dare, she scoffed. I pulled out my phone and started dialing 911. Her bravado vanished. She left, but not before delivering a parting shot. You're throwing away your family for a girl. The absurdity of it was almost comical, if it hadn't been so tragic. A few days later, my supervisor at the airport pulled me aside. "Heard about your situation, Noah," he said, his face etched with a quiet understanding. "Take whatever time you need for court. Your job's secure." It was a small kindness, a lifeline in a turbulent sea. Patricia, the prosecutor, reviewed everything. "We have a strong case, despite the missing footage," she assured us, her confidence a balm. But Cole had an expensive lawyer, funded entirely by my parents, who filed motion after motion, suppress evidence, exclude witnesses, delay trial. The sheer audacity was exhausting. My dad even sent me a letter, a coldly calculated bribe about my college fund. Cole's portion, he wrote, was gone. Mine, $85,000, was still sitting there. "Help with Cole's legal defense and I'll sign it all over to you." I sent back one line, "Keep it." 2 days later, he showed up at my workplace, yelling in the parking lot, his face contorted with impotent rage. Security escorted him off. Luna's principal called her in. We both braced ourselves, expecting her to be fired, another casualty of my parents' smear campaign. Instead, the principal offered paid leave, unequivocally stating that Luna's job was secure. A true ally. Then Vanessa reached out. We met at a diner 40 minutes outside of town, a neutral zone. She slid her phone across the table, her hands shaking, revealing screenshots of text messages, Cole flirting, making inappropriate comments to other women. "I found these 6 months into our marriage," she said, her voice tight with years of suppressed pain. "He told me they were jokes, that I was overreacting. I spent 3 years wondering if I was crazy." "Will you testify?" I asked, the question feeling almost crude in the face of her vulnerability. She was quiet for a long time, her gaze distant. When she finally looked up, her eyes were wet. "If I do, his family will destroy me." "I know," I admitted. "But if I don't, he'll do this to someone else." 3 days later, she called Patricia and agreed to testify. My parents found out, of course. My dad, in a fit of desperation, showed up at Vanessa's mother's house, pounding on the door at 9 at night, trying to pressure her. Her mother, a tough, no-nonsense woman, called the cops. He got a harassment warning. Patricia immediately filed for a protective order, which the judge granted, 500 feet from any witnesses. But they found ways around it. My mom, in the produce section of the grocery store where Luna shopped, pretending to scrutinize avocados, but clearly waiting, hovering. Luna didn't report it, there was no proof it wasn't coincidental. My mom scattered the moment I appeared. Then Cole tried. He showed up at our apartment with my parents and my Uncle Frank, a pastor, a man whose piety had always felt like a thin veneer. "We want to meet with Luna privately," Uncle Frank declared, his voice dripping with false concern, "so Cole can apologize properly." "Luna doesn't owe him anything," I shot back, a cold fury rising within me. "You're interfering with the path to redemption," he intoned. "Get off my doorstep." They left, but Uncle Frank called later, rambling about praying for my soul. I blocked his number. The reputation campaign escalated. My parents told everyone Luna had seduced Cole. In our small town, gossip spread like wildfire. Some of Luna's friends stopped calling, swayed by the relentless narrative. The real ones, the ones who mattered, stayed. My lawyer confirmed that Cole's countercomplaint against me was falling apart. Evidence clearly showed I'd intervened in an assault. The DA declined to file charges. The preliminary hearing was set for 8 weeks out. Patricia meticulously laid out the prosecution's case, Luna's testimony, the forensic exam, the torn dress, my testimony, Jenna's, Vanessa's. Cole's lawyer, relentless, punched holes everywhere he could, claiming Luna's memory was unreliable, the forensic evidence inconclusive, the witnesses biased. But the judge ruled sufficient evidence for trial. A date was set, for months out. Cole's lawyer filed more motions. One landed, the judge agreed that photos of my knuckles could be prejudicial, suggesting I was violent, and excluded them from our side. Cole's lawyer immediately moved to include them in his defense, claiming they showed excessive force, proving I was the aggressor. The judge allowed it, reasoning that while the photos weren't probative for establishing the assault itself, they were relevant to the defense's theory about the nature of my intervention. Patricia called that night. The knuckle photos ruling isn't ideal, she admitted, her voice tight. But juries understand protective reactions. Cole's bank, by now, had put him on unpaid leave. His lawyer tried to use it as proof of presumed guilt, but the bank stated it was standard protocol. Luna started having nightmares. She would wake gasping, sometimes screaming, her body racked with terror. I'd hold her until she remembered where she was, whispering reassurances, stroking her hair. She refused counseling, at first. I can't talk about it more than I already have to, she'd say, her voice hollow. Every time I say it out loud, I'm back in that room. My parents, undeterred, escalated their campaign. They called Luna's parents, trying to convince them this was all blown out of proportion. Luna's dad, a quiet man of immense integrity, shut them down with chilling finality. You raised a predator, he told them. Don't contact us again. My dad, enraged, sent a long, venomous email, claiming Luna's family was tearing ours apart. Luna's dad forwarded it to the prosecutor as witness intimidation. The missing footage stayed missing. My lawyer hired a forensics expert who, after diligent work, found evidence of deleted files. Someone had accessed the system remotely 2 days after the party and wiped specific timestamps. The venue owner, feigning ignorance, blamed a virus. Nobody believed him. Then Jenna came through with something. She'd been going through old phone photos from the party and found one taken around 7:30. In the background, clear as day, was Cole, staring at Luna while she talked to someone else, completely oblivious. Cole's expression was unmistakable, a possessive, unsettling intensity. The defense tried to exclude it, the judge allowed it. 3 weeks before trial, Cole's lawyer found some guy willing to lie. He claimed to be Luna's college ex, asserting she had a history of making false accusations. It was complete fiction. Patricia investigated, found the guy's criminal record, restraining orders from 2 different women. She filed an emergency motion to exclude him. The judge granted it, threatening the defense with sanctions. But Luna took it hard. She spent an entire day not speaking, just sitting in bed, staring at the wall. I brought her tea around evening. She finally looked at me, her eyes heavy. I get why people don't report, she said, her voice barely a whisper. They make you prove you're a perfect victim. And nobody's perfect. You're the strongest person I know, I told her, my voice thick with emotion. She gave me a tired smile. I don't feel strong. I feel like I'm drowning. My younger cousin Austin, 22, just graduated with a biology degree, reached out. I saw something at the party, he told me when we met for coffee. I should have said something then, but I didn't want to cause drama. He'd seen Cole corner Luna near the bathrooms earlier in the evening, Cole's hand on her arm, standing too close. Luna had looked deeply uncomfortable, kept trying to step back. I want to testify, he said, his young face set with determination. Show the jury Cole was targeting her all night. His parents, upon learning of his decision, cut him off, no more money for med school applications, no car insurance. He moved in with friends, started working 2 jobs. Patricia added him to the witness list. Then Vanessa found something explosive. Documentation from Cole's previous job, before the bank. He'd been fired for inappropriate conduct with a female coworker. The company had hushed it up with an NDA and a severance package. My parents had known, had helped him bury it, using their connections to get him the bank job despite the termination. Patricia filed a motion to include it as evidence of prior bad acts. The defense went ballistic. The judge took it under advisement. Cole's lawyer knew it was potentially devastating. He started pushing hard for a plea deal. Patricia presented Luna with the offer. Luna sat there, absorbing the information, her face unreadable. "What do you think I should do?" she asked me, her voice small. "That's not my call," I said gently. "But if we go to trial, you'll have to testify. Cross-examination will be brutal. The plea means you don't have to go through that." Luna was quiet for a long moment. "If I take the plea, does it go on his record?" "Yes. As a convicted sex offender, he'd have to register." "But not the full charges?" "No. Attempted sexual assault instead of sexual assault." Luna looked at me, her eyes searching mine. "What do you think?" "Whatever lets you sleep at night." She nodded, a slow, deliberate movement. She turned back to Patricia. "I want the trial. I want a jury to hear everything." We were going to trial. 2 weeks before trial, my parents organized a family meeting. They didn't invite us. My cousin David, whose moral compass had, miraculously, realigned itself, called to warn me. He said it was brutal. My parents brought character witnesses for Cole, his old football coach, a church lady, his former boss from before the bank. They had relatives signing a letter asking the prosecutor to drop charges. Half the family bought it. The other half, disgusted, walked out. Jenna called after, her voice hollow. Her parents weren't speaking to her. Her brother had called her a traitor. "I keep thinking maybe this isn't worth losing everyone," she said, a tremor in her voice. "It's your choice," I told her, trying to keep my own emotions in check. No judgment. But I saw what I saw. I can't pretend I didn't. Austin was in similar shape, working 2 jobs, sleeping on a friend's couch, alienated from his family but unwavering in his resolve. Patricia prepped Luna for cross-examination over 3 grueling sessions, bringing in a paralegal to play defense attorney, hitting Luna with every possible, humiliating question. After the 3rd session, Luna came out looking utterly wrecked. "They're going to ask about my sexual history, aren't they?" she whispered, her voice raw. Even though the judge had said no, Patricia had warned us. "They'll try. I'll object immediately, but they'll try to imply things." "How do I stop that?" Luna asked, her eyes desperate. "You don't," Patricia said, her voice kind but firm. "You just answer honestly and trust the jury." Luna didn't sleep that night. Neither did I. 1 week out, someone started following Luna. The same car, 3 days in a row. She got the plate. Patricia ran it through her police contacts. It came back registered to a private investigation company. My parents had hired them. The cops warned the investigator off. Patricia filed another motion. The judge issued another stern warning. That night, Luna broke down completely. "I can't take much more of this," she sobbed, curled into a tight ball on our bathroom floor. "The trial hasn't even started and I'm already destroyed." I held her, stroking her hair, the bitter taste of helplessness in my mouth. We took a drive the next day, just drove with no destination, seeking the anonymity of the open road. We ended up at a diner an hour away, the kind with checkered floors and sticky menus. Luna ordered pancakes she didn't touch. "You remember when we first got engaged?" she asked, her voice soft, wistful. "We drove out here to look at a venue. Place was a disaster. Worst carpet I've ever seen." She almost smiled then, a fleeting ghost of her old self. "Everything was so simple then." "It'll be simple again," I promised, though the words felt hollow even to me. "Will it?" she asked, her gaze piercing through my hollow optimism. I didn't know. So I just held her hand across the table, a silent comfort. 3 days before trial, the judge finally ruled on the prior job termination. Admissible. Evidence of a pattern was relevant. The defense had fought hard, but they had lost. Cole's lawyer, in one last desperate push, offered another plea deal. Patricia discussed it with Luna again. "You don't have to do this," she said, her voice full of empathy. "The plea is still on the table. Nobody would blame you." Luna shook her head, her jaw set. "I need people to hear what happened. Not a reduced version. The real thing." The night before trial, we sat on the couch, not talking. The TV was on, a meaningless hum of background noise, neither of us watching. "Do you think we'll win?" Luna asked, her voice barely audible. "I don't know," I admitted, the brutal honesty a relief. "That's honest at least," she said, looking at me, her eyes already brimming. "If we lose, that's not even a question." She started crying then, soft, wrenching sobs. "I don't know what I'll do if he walks." "We'll figure it out," I said, pulling her close, burying my face in her hair. "Whatever happens." Morning came too fast. I put on my suit, a somber uniform for a somber day. Luna wore a simple gray dress, a testament to her quiet strength. We drove to the courthouse in silence, the air thick with unspoken fears. Patricia met us outside, a beacon of calm. "Evidence is strong," she said, her hand resting briefly on Luna's arm. "Trust the process." We walked inside. The courtroom was smaller than I'd expected, about 50 seats, half filled with people we knew. Jenna, Austin, Luna's parents, a small army of quiet support. On Cole's side, my parents, their heads held high, their carefully chosen character witnesses. Cole sat at the defense table, looking older, somehow diminished. His broken nose had healed, crooked, a visible scar on his lip. But his posture, that entitled slump, remained. The judge entered, a woman in her 50s with gray hair pulled back in a severe bun, her eyes sharp, missing nothing. Jury selection took all morning. By lunch, 12 jurors and 2 alternates were chosen, 8 women, 4 men. Opening statements began after lunch. Patricia went first, clean and direct. She showed photos of Luna's torn dress, the marks on her shoulder and chest, the locked room with the forced entry damage, explaining how I'd intervened to stop an assault. Cole's lawyer, predictably, claimed Luna had been flirting with Cole, gone into that room willingly. When I showed up, he argued, she panicked and fabricated the assault story. He painted me as the real aggressor. Luna's hand was shaking under the table. I squeezed it, a silent anchor. The prosecution called the responding officers first. They described the chaotic scene, Luna's terrified state, the locked door with the deadbolt torn through the frame, Cole's injuries. The defense tried to poke holes, suggesting the officers couldn't know what happened before they arrived. It didn't land. Jenna testified next, recounting Cole tracking Luna, following her to the building. The defense tried to dismiss it as normal party behavior. "I've been to plenty of parties," Jenna said firmly, her voice clear, "that wasn't normal." One of the women jurors nodded slightly. Austin followed, testifying about Cole cornering Luna earlier, standing too close while Luna looked uncomfortable. Day 1 ended. Patricia said it went well, but tomorrow, she warned, would be harder. We ordered Chinese food, picking at noodles neither of us truly wanted. Day 2 began with Vanessa. She walked through Cole's controlling behavior during their marriage, the suffocating jealousy, the insidious isolation, the gut-wrenching discovery of his inappropriate texts. The defense cross-examined her hard, suggesting she was bitter, lying for revenge. Vanessa looked the lawyer dead in the eye, her voice ringing with hard-won truth. "I'm grateful for the divorce," she stated. "It saved me from a dangerous man." Then Patricia dropped the bomb, evidence of Cole's previous termination, the inappropriate conduct, the NDA, how my parents had known and helped him bury it. Cole's lawyer objected, but it was too late. The jury had heard every word. My parents, in the gallery, looked utterly devastated. Then it was my turn. I walked through finding them, every agonizing detail, Cole's hand over Luna's mouth, the terror in her eyes, the torn dress, his hand groping her. The defense tried to paint me as unstable, suggesting I'd been looking for an excuse to hurt Cole. Any man who wouldn't defend his fiancée in that situation isn't worth knowing, I said, my voice steady, meeting their accusatory glare. They brought up the photos of my knuckles, suggesting excessive force. I stopped when someone pulled me off, I stated. Patricia had warned me during lunch, if they ask again, show some awareness that violence has consequences. On redirect, the prosecutor asked if I regretted my actions. I paused, considering. I regret it got to that point. I wish I'd found them sooner. But I don't regret stopping him. 2 jurors looked uncomfortable. Then Luna took the stand. She walked up slowly, a fragile dignity in her posture, took the oath, and sat down. She walked through the entire night, from going inside, to Cole following, to the room, what he said, what he did, locking the door, covering her mouth when she tried to scream, tearing her dress down, groping her chest, her profound terror. Her voice stayed steady through the initial testimony, a testament to her courage. The defense cross-examination was brutal, 3 hours of invasive, humiliating questions about her clothing, why she went to a private room, why she didn't scream louder, whether I was controlling. Luna answered everything calmly, never wavering. Then the lawyer asked about past relationships. Patricia objected. Judge sustained. He tried asking about her sexual history. Patricia was on her feet, a furious objection. Judge sustained and warned the defense. One more inappropriate question and I'll hold you in contempt. He backed off. He asked if she was after money. Luna actually laughed, a sharp, disbelieving sound that sliced through the courtroom. I make my own money teaching kids. I don't need anything from him. The lawyer tried one more angle, suggesting her dress tore during my fight with Cole. Luna pointed out the timeline. Officers photographed me immediately, she said, her voice ringing with conviction. The medical exam documented everything before I was even separated from Cole. Medical evidence doesn't lie, she declared, her gaze sweeping over the jury, even if lawyers try to make it. The judge warned her about inflammatory language, but a couple of jurors were smiling. Luna stepped down. She had survived. Day 3. The defense called their character witnesses. The football coach, the church lady, the former boss, all testified about what a great person Cole was. Patricia, wisely, didn't attack them, simply established that none had been at the party. Then Cole took the stand. His lawyer walked him through his version, Luna giving him signals, touching his arm, going inside because she wanted privacy, things getting physical but consensual, me bursting in and Luna panicking. Patricia destroyed him on cross. She asked why the door was locked if it was consensual. He stammered that he hadn't locked it. The officer's report, Patricia pointed out, clearly stated the deadbolt was engaged, forced entry damage evident. She asked about the torn dress. He claimed it ripped when I attacked. Photos, Patricia revealed, showed Luna wore the torn dress before I touched him. She asked why Vanessa left. He fumbled. She asked about the previous job termination. He claimed it was a misunderstanding. The documentation, she showed, said otherwise. Every answer made him look worse, sweating, stumbling, contradicting himself. Closing arguments were day 4. Patricia connected every piece, showing how Cole's story didn't match physical evidence, witness testimony, or his documented history. Cole's lawyer argued reasonable doubt, imperfect memories, family tragedy, claiming the state was trying to ruin a man's life over mere allegations. His argument was weak, desperate. The jury deliberated for 8 long hours. We waited in a side room, Luna sitting perfectly still, me pacing a worn path into the carpet. Patricia checked her phone every few minutes. Finally, a call came around 6 p.m. The judge asked the jury foreperson to read the verdict. Guilty. Luna collapsed against me, sobbing, her body racked with deep, gasping sobs. I held her, feeling her trembling, anchoring her to me. Behind us, Luna's parents were crying, quiet tears of relief. My parents were silent. The judge thanked the jury, setting sentencing for 3 weeks later. We walked out, reporters swarming, cameras flashing. Patricia waved them off, shielding us. Sentencing came 3 weeks later. The judge gave him 8 years. Eligible for parole after 6 with good behavior, though the parole board would ultimately decide. She called his actions predatory, saying he had abused family trust and shown zero genuine remorse. She made it clear the relatively light sentence was due to a lack of prior convictions on record, not because the crime wasn't serious. My parents didn't attend sentencing. 3 months after sentencing, Luna and I were trying to build something normal, something new. A different apartment across town, new routines, a deliberate distance from everything that had shattered our lives. Luna went to counseling alone at first, wrestling with the insidious tendrils of trauma. It took her 6 weeks to suggest we go together. The sessions were hard, unearthing buried pain. The counselor kept circling back to one question, a deceptively simple inquiry that held a world of meaning: how did you feel when you found out about the business purchase? I'd discovered, through a series of anonymous tips and careful investigation, that my dad's consulting business was struggling badly after the trial. Clients had left in droves, unable to stomach the association. His business partner, a man with a quiet distaste for scandal, wanted out desperately. Their partnership agreement had a clause: if either partner wanted to dissolve, they could force a sale of the entire business to a third party if they couldn't agree on a buyout. The partner invoked it. I made an offer through a lawyer, anonymously at first, using an LLC, buying the entire business for 60 cents on the dollar. The partner took it immediately. My dad, bound by the terms, couldn't block it. How did that feel? The counselor asked Luna, her gaze gentle. Luna was quiet for a moment, tracing a pattern on the armrest. Relieved, I guess, she finally said. His parents can't use their connections as leverage anymore. That felt good. And how else? The counselor prompted. I don't know, Luna admitted, looking at me. Uneasy sometimes. Not about you doing it, just about how much satisfaction you get from their downfall. Sometimes I worry the anger is eating you. That hit hard. It sat in my chest like a physical weight, a truth I had consciously avoided. She was right. The counselor nodded. Anger like that becomes its own prison. When I took official ownership, my first action was filing the paperwork showing me as the owner. My second was sending my dad a letter informing him his former business now belonged to his disappointment son. He called, incoherent with rage. You stole my legacy. You destroyed yourself by defending Cole. I ruined my life over you. No, I cut him off, my voice cold, devoid of emotion. You ruined your life over your own choices. I just bought a failing business at market value. I hung up, blocked his number, but Luna's words stayed with me. The bitter satisfaction I'd felt watching my dad spiral. The cold pleasure when my mom, in a fit of delusion, got arrested for violating the protective order, trying to accidentally bump into Luna at the grocery store. Was I becoming someone whose anger was more dangerous than helpful? I called my parents' lawyer 3 weeks later, setting up a meeting in a public place. When I told Luna, she looked surprised. You sure about this? No, I admitted, running a hand through my hair. But I think I need to hear what they have to say. I'm coming with you, she said, her resolve unwavering. My Uncle Steve, my father's brother, a quiet, decent man who had been a silent ally, came as a neutral referee. We met at a coffee shop in their new suburb, 30 minutes away. A small town, quiet streets, a massive downgrade from their sprawling house. They were already there, sitting in a corner booth, looking like they'd aged 15 years in less than one. My dad's hair was completely gray. My mom had lost weight, looked almost frail, the performative grief of the trial replaced by real devastation. We sat down. Nobody spoke for a full minute, the silence heavy, suffocating. My mom started crying immediately, soft, broken sobs. My dad stared at his hands, his knuckles white. Finally, he spoke, his voice rough, raspy. We were wrong about everything. I waited, my face impassive. We let our pride and fear cloud our judgment. We chose the wrong son. We failed Luna. We failed you. We've spent 9 months trying to understand how we became people who defended. He couldn't finish. My mom looked at Luna, her voice shaking, raw with regret. I convinced myself he was innocent because accepting the truth meant I'd raised a predator, that I'd failed as a mother. Every choice I made was selfish fear. I tried to gaslight you to protect my own ego. She paused, took a shuddering breath. I'm sorry doesn't fix anything. I don't expect forgiveness. I just needed you to know we finally understand. My dad kept going, his gaze lifting to meet mine. Buying the business was actually the wake-up call we needed. Losing everything made us confront who we'd become, what we'd actually valued. We'd been hollow people who cared more about appearances than truth. He looked at me, his eyes clouded with what looked like genuine pain. You were right to cut us off. Right to take the business. Right to choose Luna. His voice cracked, thick with emotion. I'm proud of you. I know I've earned zero right to feel that way. I sat there, processing. A part of me, a small, hopeful part, wanted to believe them. But the memories were still too vivid, too recent. My mom suggesting Luna had led Cole on. My dad saying blood was thicker than water. Luna spoke first, her voice calm, clear, unwavering. I appreciate you acknowledging this. That took courage. Both my parents looked hopeful, a flicker of light in their ravaged faces. But acknowledgement isn't the same as amends, she continued, her voice firm. I'll never feel safe around you. The relationship is permanently broken. No amount of apologies changes that. My mom started crying harder, her shoulders shaking. You'll have to live with that, Luna said, her voice soft but unyielding. Live with knowing you chose your predator son over his victim. Live with knowing you lost your other son in the process. My dad nodded, his eyes shut tight. I understand. I leaned forward, my voice low, deliberate. I don't forgive you. Might never forgive you. You'll have to live the rest of your lives knowing what you did. Every time Cole sits in prison, remember you tried to keep him free. Every time Luna has a nightmare, remember you called her a liar. I paused, letting the words hang in the air. Taking the business wasn't revenge. It was taking control of my life. Refusing to let you have leverage over us anymore. That was true. Truer than the satisfaction part one wasn't ready to admit to myself, not yet. You were right that I chose Luna over family, I said, my voice rising slightly. I'd make that choice again every time. But not because blood doesn't matter. Because you proved you weren't family when it counted. I stood up. Luna stood with me. You got your chance to apologize, I said. I heard it. It doesn't change anything. You earned your isolation. You earned every consequence. We left, walking out into the late afternoon sun, leaving them to their grief. Steve called later. He said my parents sat there for an hour, just crying. Do you feel better? He asked, his voice gentle. No, I said, rubbing the back of my neck. Just done. The anger was still there, a simmering ember, but I wasn't letting it control me anymore. Luna asked later if I thought they'd actually changed. Maybe, I said. Doesn't matter. Change doesn't erase damage. She nodded, a quiet understanding passing between us. I'm proud of you for facing them, she said, leaning against me on the couch later that night. You were right about the anger eating me. I was scared I'd lose you to it. Not because you'd leave, but because you'd become someone I didn't recognize. I pulled her close, burying my face in her hair. Not happening. We sat in comfortable silence, the television a quiet hum, Murphy twitching at our feet, dreaming of squirrels. I had a good day at school today, she said, her voice soft. First time in months where I didn't think about the trial once. This kid named Miguel told me I was his favorite teacher because I let them have dance breaks between math problems. I smiled into her hair. High praise. Highest, she confirmed, a small chuckle rumbling in her chest. She was quiet for a moment. I think I'm going to be okay eventually. Me, too, I whispered. A year after sentencing, Luna and I were finally building something real, tangible. The business, under the new management I'd hired, was steady, slowly regaining its footing. Luna was back to teaching full-time, coming home with stories that sounded like sunlight instead of stress. We bought a small house with a yard and adopted a dog, Murphy, whose only goals in life were treats and chasing squirrels. Cole was still in prison, not doing well from what we heard, but I didn't take satisfaction in it, just noted it, a factual observation. My parents stayed quiet in their suburb, volunteering with a domestic violence organization. Too little, too late, perhaps, but at least something. Our family, the one we'd chosen, mostly moved on. Jenna and Austin became closer than ever. Vanessa rebuilt her life 3 states away and sent Luna a simple card on the verdict anniversary. Thank you for being brave, someone at work once asked if I'd gotten revenge. I said no, just consequences. Mostly true. Letting go of the bitterness was slower work than any engine overhaul, but I had time. We spent more Saturdays at the park, watching Murphy bark at leaves while Luna laughed beside me, her hand warm in mine. Remember when everything was complicated? She asked one afternoon. Some things still were, of course, the lingering shadows, the subtle shifts. But not this. Dog, sun, burned coffee, her hand in mine. The rage still showed up sometimes, a sudden flare, but less often. The good days finally outnumbered the bad. We weren't perfect or fully healed, but we were alive together, building something new from what was left, and that, in the quiet, earned peace of our lives, was enough. But how do you ever truly, completely, forgive the ones who taught you that blood can be thinner than water?